There's a moment, early in childhood, when you learn the most damaging lesson of your life. You're crying, or you're scared, or you need something, and you watch the adult in front of you sigh. Not with compassion, but with exhaustion, with annoyance. And in that instant, something clicks in your small mind. My feelings are too much. My needs are inconvenient. I am a burden. That lesson doesn't arrive with words. No one sits you down and explains that you're too much, that your emotions are unwelcome, that your very existence feels heavy to the people who are supposed to love you. It happens in 1,000 tiny moments. The dismissive wave when you try to share something important. The heavy silence when you ask for help. The phrase you hear over and over, sometimes spoken, sometimes just felt in the air. Stop being so sensitive. You're fine. Other people have it worse. And slowly, quietly, you learn to disappear. This is childhood emotional neglect. Not what happened to you, but what failed to happen for you. When your parents don't respond enough to your emotions as they raise you, when there's a lack of emotional awareness, validation, and attunement in your childhood home, you receive a subliminal message that the child internalizes. Feelings are useless and burdensome. Emotionally neglected children naturally push their feelings down and away so that they will not be a problem to their parents and family. You weren't beaten. You weren't abandoned. You had a roof over your head and food on the table. So why do you feel this way? Because emotional neglect is invisible. It's not about abuse. It's about absence. The absence of someone noticing when you were struggling. The absence of comfort when you were hurting. The absence of validation when you needed to be seen. And that absence carved out a space inside you where shame now lives. Fast forward to adulthood, and that childhood wound becomes your operating system. You've built your entire life around one core belief: I am too much, and therefore I must become less. Less needy, less emotional, less present. You apologize constantly for things that don't require apologies. Sorry for bothering you. Sorry for needing help. Sorry for existing in a way that requires anything from anyone. According to research, 71% of people aged 18 to 35 don't talk about their stress because they worry about being a burden to others. Think about that. The majority of young adults are suffering in silence because they've internalized the belief that their pain is an inconvenience. You've become hyper-independent, a trauma response where you've learned that you cannot trust or rely on others, so you depend solely on yourself to meet your needs. When someone offers help, your immediate response is, "No, I've got it." Not because you actually have it under control, but because asking for help feels like admitting you're weak, needy, fundamentally flawed. You'd rather drown than reach for a hand because reaching feels like proof that you were right all along. You are too much. Here's where it gets insidious. You don't just refuse help. You refuse connection. Because connection requires vulnerability. And vulnerability requires admitting that you have needs. And admitting you have needs feels like confirming the worst thing you believe about yourself. So you keep people at arm's length. You become the strong friend, the one everyone leans on, the one who never asks for anything in return. And beneath that performance of strength, you're lonely. You're exhausted. You're secretly hoping that someone will see through the mask and ask if you're okay. But when they do, you smile and say, "I'm fine." Because fine is what you've been trained to be. Fine is safe. Fine doesn't burden anyone. The cruel irony is this: the more you try not to be a burden, the more isolated you become. And isolation feeds the belief that you're unlovable, which makes you even less likely to reach out, which deepens the isolation. It's a vicious cycle that started when you were too young to understand what was happening. You learned that love is conditional, that affection must be earned through performance, through being easy, through never needing too much. You learned that your worth is measured by how little space you take up, how few problems you cause, how invisible you can make your suffering. And now, as an adult, You carry that burden everywhere. Relationships feel dangerous because what if they discover how needy you really are? What if they see the parts of you that want comfort, that crave reassurance, that need support? Better to stay self-sufficient. Better to handle everything alone. Better to be the person who gives and never receives. Because giving feels safe and receiving feels like exposure. But here's what you need to understand. This belief, this deep conviction that you are a burden, it's not truth. It's a lie that was installed in you before you had the capacity to question it. The feeling of being a burden often arises from a complex interplay of psychological factors, including low self-esteem, where people internalize negative beliefs about their worth and value, leading them to view themselves as inherently burdensome or unworthy of support. It's a survival mechanism that helped you adapt to an environment where your emotions weren't welcome. But what worked then is destroying you now. Because the truth is, everyone has needs. Everyone requires support. Everyone deserves to take up space and ask for help and be seen in their struggle. That's not weakness. That's being human. The people who love you, the real ones, they don't see you as a burden. They see someone they care about who's been taught not to ask for the very thing humans need most: connection. When you finally work up the courage to share what you're going through, and someone responds with genuine care, that's not pity. That's love. And you're allowed to receive it. You don't have to earn it through perfection, or prove you're worthy by never needing anything. Your existence alone makes you deserving of care. But believing that, that's the work. That's where the healing lives. So how do you begin to untangle this? First, you have to recognize that these thoughts, I'm too much, I'm a burden, no one wants to deal with my problems, those aren't facts, they're fears. And fears, especially ones rooted in childhood wounds, are not reliable narrators of reality. Start questioning them. When you think, I shouldn't bother anyone with this, ask yourself, is this true, or is this the voice of a child who learned that their needs were inconvenient? Would you think a friend was a burden if they came to you with the same problem? Of course not. So why are you holding yourself to a standard you'd never apply to anyone else? Second, practice asking for help in small ways. Not because you need to prove anything, but because you need to teach your nervous system that asking is safe. Start tiny. Can you help me with this? I could use some advice. I'm struggling today. Watch what happens. Most of the time, people are honored to be trusted. They want to help. And even if someone can't, that doesn't confirm your unworthiness. It just means they're dealing with their own limitations. Their capacity has nothing to do with your value. Third, work on self-compassion. This is the hardest part because it requires you to parent yourself in the way you should have been parented. It means looking at the child you were, the one who learned to be small and quiet and easy, and saying what no one said then. You were never too much. You were exactly enough. Your needs were legitimate. Your feelings mattered. You deserved to be seen, heard, and loved without having to earn it. And that child, they're still in there, waiting for someone to finally say those words. Let it be you. Therapy can be transformative here. Cognitive behavioral therapy can help you challenge and reframe those deeply ingrained negative thought patterns. A trauma-informed therapist can help you explore where these beliefs came from and guide you in building new, healthier ones. Healing from the feeling of being a burden isn't about becoming perfect or never needing help. It's about recognizing that needing help doesn't make you defective. It makes you alive. And here's what happens when you start to heal. Slowly, you begin to let people in. Not all at once, but in moments. You share something vulnerable and the world doesn't end. You ask for support and someone shows up. You express a need and it gets met with kindness instead of resentment. And each time that happens, you're rewriting the story. You're teaching yourself that connection is possible, that you are not, in fact, too much, that your presence in someone's life can be a gift rather than a weight. It won't happen overnight. Some days you'll still feel like you're drowning, and reaching out will feel impossible. But those days don't erase your progress. Healing isn't linear. It's messy and slow and requires more patience than you think you have. But it's worth it. Because on the other side of this belief, there's a version of you that exists without constant apology. A version that can receive love without suspicion. A version that understands that being human means needing others, and needing others doesn't make you weak. It makes you real. So if you're reading this and you recognize yourself in these words, hear this. You are not a burden. You never were. The people who made you feel that way, they were dealing with their own limitations, their own inability to show up emotionally. That was about them, not you. And carrying that shame into your adult life, believing that your needs are too much, that's not protecting you. It's isolating you from the very thing that could heal you. Genuine connection. You deserve to be seen. You deserve to ask for help. You deserve to take up space in this world without apologizing for existing. And the moment you start to believe that, really believe it, is the moment everything changes. Because you're not too much. You've just been taught to believe you are. And beliefs, even the deepest ones, can be changed. One vulnerable moment at a time,